Do you ever imagine what it would feel like to have $500,000 in the bank and never have to lift a finger again? Not just the thrill of numbers on a screen, but the quiet liberation that comes from knowing, with absolute certainty, that the world cannot take away your ability to survive. If you're someone who cares too much, that thought is both intoxicating and terrifying, because care is a currency that can't be measured in dollars. It's energy, attention, empathy, and responsibility. And even with $500,000 tucked away, the mind of someone who overcares doesn't simply relax. It asks, what now? What about everyone else? What if something goes wrong? Psychologists call this hyperresponsibility, and it's deeply wired. When you care too much, your nervous system treats the world as a fragile ecosystem, with your attention as the glue holding it together. Every misstep, every unmet obligation, every overlooked need feels like a personal failure. Money, no matter how abundant, does not instantly erase this wiring. In fact, it often magnifies it. With $500,000 in the bank, the freedom to do nothing exposes a paradox. You may finally have external security, but internal security, trusting yourself, your choices, your right to rest, is something entirely different. The first thing you notice in this imagined life is silence. It's not emptiness, it's a mirror. When the chaos of survival disappears, the mind that was always solving problems for others suddenly has space to reflect. People who overcare often define themselves by action, helping, giving, fixing, responding. Without that constant motion, you are confronted with yourself. Neuroscience shows that the brain's default mode network, the area that governs self-reflection and meaning-making, activates most in stillness. This is why moments of freedom can feel disorienting, even unsettling. For someone who has always measured worth through utility, stillness can feel like guilt. Yet, in this stillness, there is also clarity. With no immediate financial pressure, you start to see patterns in your own behavior. You notice how often you traded your energy for validation, how often anxiety dictated decisions, how often fear of judgment drove choices more than strategy or desire. Money doesn't erase those patterns, but it illuminates them. You see the difference between care that sustains life and care that consumes it. You begin to recognize that overgiving is not generosity, it's compulsion. And the paradox is simple. Financial freedom does not make care effortless, but it allows care to be intentional. The healthy side of this scenario is profound. With financial security, you can invest in yourself, your health, your learning, your passions. You can set boundaries without fear of loss, and in doing so, you begin to recalibrate your nervous system. Behavioral science confirms that when people perceive stability, stress hormones decrease and executive function improves. Suddenly, decisions are no longer reactive. They are deliberate. You begin to understand that doing nothing does not mean failing, it means choosing what is worthy of your energy. The act of restraint becomes a form of care, both for yourself and for others. Yet, there is a darker truth as well. People who care too much may find that doing nothing triggers latent anxiety. Without external crises to focus on, your mind creates internal ones. Did I spend wisely? Did I save enough? Did I miss someone who needed me? Hyperresponsibility doesn't vanish with money. It mutates. It can make freedom feel like a cage, because the weight of care doesn't disappear when obligations are removed. It waits for permission to breathe. Understanding this is key. Wealth alone cannot heal the nervous system. Freedom must be paired with reflection, boundaries, and self-compassion, to be truly liberating. In this imagined life of $500,000 in stillness, another realization emerges. You start to see money as a tool rather than a measure of worth. The numbers on the screen no longer define you, they empower you. With no need to prove yourself through labor or sacrifice, you can finally direct your care where it matters most. Not compulsively, not reactively, but consciously. This is the quiet mastery of the overcaring mind, learning to give not from fear or obligation, but from choice. You see that freedom is not the absence of responsibility, it is the presence of intentionality. That the cinematic truth of this scenario is subtle but transformative. Money does not erase the patterns of it simply allows space to notice them, to understand them, and to begin reshaping them. The $500,000 in the bank becomes a lens, reflecting both the anxiety you carried and the potential of the care you could wield without being consumed. In that reflection, you can choose to care wisely, to set boundaries gracefully, to nurture yourself as much as others. This is a rare kind of wealth, one that compounds over years, not just in numbers, but in emotional resilience and clarity of purpose. And here lies the emotional epiphany. True freedom, even with $500,000 in the bank, is not financial, it is psychological. It is the ability to hold space for yourself without guilt, to direct care without depletion, to engage with the world from a place of presence rather than compulsion. The numbers on a screen can create security, but they cannot create trust in yourself, nor the deep, quiet confidence that you are enough. That is learned in reflection, in stillness, in the deliberate alignment of your care with your capacity. So tonight, as you imagine this life of financial abundance and deliberate stillness, ask yourself this: if you had the security to do nothing, What would you choose to do? Where would you direct your care if it were guided by intention rather than fear? Because the truth is, wealth is not measured by the zeros in your bank account, it is measured by the freedom to care deeply, wisely, and sustainably, without losing yourself in the process.